Welcome, welcome everyone. We are now on creating resilience, and today's topic is one that is near and dear to my heart, simply because it's a topic about homes, the homes in which we live, the way we build them, the way we design them, and the way that we also live in them. It's really important, especially when we're going to be probably going from pandemic to pandemic, that the places in which we actually go are not toxic as well, because we're just going from one toxic opportunity into another. Hello, Will. Welcome.
Hi.
This is Will
Hello.
Tuttle,
Hi, Will.
everyone.
Hello, Will.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, because we are all pretty much sequestered at home, most of us anyway, it's really important to be thinking about what is home? What is our home? Why do we even have a home? To be quite honest, most animals only have a nest to go and sleep or to rear their young and to hide their young. We look for homes constantly unless we're houseless or homeless. And then there are those, of course, who on purpose will go into nature and live in nature and give up the accepted idea of being homed, being in a house. So we're going to be exploring all of this today. Vanessa will be joining us shortly. She's stuck on the roads of Los Angeles. So we will start by introducing our guest. Will, since you're a familiar face, why don't we start with you?
Great. Okay. So I'll just say a few words about the topic of home and having a healthy home. And I think, I really like how you framed it very broadly. I had the opportunity right out of college to be homeless for quite a few, I guess about a year. Um, Voluntarily, I went on a spiritual pilgrimage and just walked with my brother. We thought we'd walk across the whole United States. We had a few things, but we got rid of things because you have to carry it on your back pretty soon. I don't need this anymore. But we were traveling and meditating. And so our focus was on meditation. And we would get a little food somewhere from somebody's garden if they were generous. And we would spend the night on the floor of churches and things. But it was very liberating for me. I'm really glad I did that right out of college. I learned to dumpster dive and just sleep in forests. And sometimes we were thrown in prison jails for the night or whatever, but for vagrancy. But overall, it was a very positive experience. A lot of loving people overall, and it was really a wonderful chance to just experience a sense of freedom, of not having anything to protect so much. I mean, it was just my own body, I guess, but there was a sense of being much more closely connected to nature. We were walking maybe 8 or 9 hours a day, sleeping outside a lot, eating outside. So I just love nature, and I think it's really one of the main problems we have in our world today is that we are disconnected from nature, and we live in artificial environments, artificial air, artificial water, artificial light and sound, and everything's artificial in many ways for many people. And so we have artificial temperatures. So like where we live now, we lived also on the road in a micro home, like a 200 square foot house for about 20 years. My wife, Madeline, and I lived in a Volkswagen bus actually for 3 years, a few years, before I met Madeline. And then for about 18 years, we were together in a small fifth wheel trailer. So again, it was living outside a lot. Basically, when you're living in a small space, like in a Volkswagen bus or in a small RV, we were outside a lot, and we would take a shower by taking a swim. Basically, typically that was it. We would swim every day somewhere, and we would sleep outside quite a bit and that kind of thing, or have a lot of access to the outdoors. Now for the last 8 years, we've actually had a house for the first time that I've actually owned a house. And it's the same kind of a thing. We're in Northern California, so we have decks and we're outside a lot, and we keep the doors open a lot. I think fresh air is really important, and good water is really important. Because, indoor air pollution is a huge problem. We have an air conditioning system, heating system, which we have not used for 8 years. I mean, to speak of, we just don't use heat and air conditioning, probably because I think air conditioning is kind of toxic. with the lack of negative ions, and so we learned to make fresh air through the house and run fans and things like that during the hot season. And we have a little small thing that humidifies the air and kind of like a mini swamp cooler. And in the winters, we dress warmly, basically, and we have some small space heaters that we use too. But the idea really is to call on our body's natural ability to be comfortable, right? I mean, in various situations, to learn, like, to develop a core, which I think is something we can do through meditation practice and just by eating healthy food, develop a core temperature. So if it's really cold, I can feel my warm core. I'm warm. Even if it's cold outside, I feel warm, or in the house. If it's really hot, I develop a cool core. So even if it's really hot, I'm sweating, I just feel cool inside. So I think, we have many more capacities than we're aware of as human beings that we don't use. And one of the things that I think is really a big problem, I guess, is that we crave comfort. We want to be comfortable all the time. And we don't realize that there's a trade-off. The more comfortable I'm addicted to being, to always having a very tiny temperature, being in that range, the more our body loses the capacity to be flexible and to adjust. And then we concentrate more toxins, I think, in general. Like sweating actually helps get rid of toxins, and I think there's a lot to learn as human beings in our society about becoming more self-reliant. So I just saw I shrunk down, so I'm assuming that's at the end of my time, but I'm happy to contribute some more ideas maybe, or talk to other points. This is a huge subject. So thank you very much.
No, I shrunk you down because Vanessa has arrived.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. All right. I know you like to not go too long, so I can stop. I can stop there and add some more things later, perhaps, if you want, or whatever.
So Will, I'm really glad to hear about your experience and the indoorsy outdoorsy connection, because we have two special guests today, which they're architects, and this is something which which I think is really important to start exploring. I find it interesting that we arrest people for vagrancy,
right,
if we find them outdoors for too long, but yet we give into the idea of summer camp, and we believe in camping outdoors, but only if it's formalized, if it's being sanctioned by the rest of society. But if you on your own should decide to do that, then you can get arrested for vagrancy. So I think it's really interesting that we need to start looking and redefining the concept of home and what constitutes a home. And I'm going to go into more details in this later when I talk about what the concept of home means, and we start exploring that. But before we do that, I really, really must bring on two very special guests that we have today, which are Alexander and Michelle, sustainable architects.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you so much, Dorit and Vanessa. And Will, it's very good to meet you. Yes, so it's interesting to follow up on Will's discussion, because whereby I would say Will is more on the resiliency of the person. Alexander and I have embraced focusing on the built environment, the
artificial environment.
The artificial, but the home as a resilient system. So we,
let's introduce.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we should introduce ourselves first. I'm Michelle Colby. It's Alexander Colby.
We're both architects, and we run a company that specializes in building super energy efficient, net zero, sustainable, green, healthy homes.
Right.
And I'm German, as you might be able to tell by my accent. And we met in Germany many years ago, and then we moved here to the US in 2009. And I have been involved in working with two of the most renowned German prefab companies for residential homes. And they were very, very adamant about being as energy efficient as possible. We were involved in research and development, and it was a really a mind-opening experience to work with these guys. And when we came here to the US, I can only speak for myself, but for me, it was a bit like a culture shock coming from Germany, because buildings are very different in Europe. especially in Germany. They're all very solid. They have a lot of thermal storage capacity because they're block walls or concrete walls and stuff like that. And nobody, with very, very few exceptions, nobody would ever put AC in their homes. It's just something that's totally unheard of. And only very occasionally, super rich people might do that just for that comfort thing. Or, I'm talking strictly residential. I'm not talking business offices and retail stores. But and they achieved that on several levels. And so coming here, I noticed that we wanted to continue our work. We wanted to develop super green, energy efficient homes. And we basically ran against the wall. It was so hard. We couldn't find anyone who really understood the concept, who was willing to work with us on the development of green homes. And in the end, we came to that very bold conclusion: we have to pull this off ourselves. And we founded Evodomus, our company here, and we are that's our specialty. So we found partners, manufacturers who are willing to really leave the beaten path and build homes based on our specifications, which differ greatly from standard construction. And that was the biggest struggle for us, to find people who are actually willing to do this. Yeah. And we, for a number of reasons, we also thought that prefabrication is the way to go. I learned that a lot. Sometimes I teach here at Kent State occasionally, and when I lecture about prefab, I always show the students pictures from construction sites where the building is already deteriorating while it's still being built. So it's exposed to the element. You have your insulation in the walls. It rains. The insulation is soaking wet, and you build up mold in your walls without knowing, in a brand new house. And for us, this is just a horrible thought, and that's why we prefer greatly building in a factory where you have a controlled environment, where you can even control the moisture content of the wood, the humidity, everything. All the materials are safe and dry when they get put into the walls and in everything you put into the house. So then from there we developed our business once we had secured the production facility, and that's what we do now. So our goal is net zero, and also a home as much free of toxins as possible, which is not always easy, because even materials that are FDA approved, they still might contain toxins that nobody talks about, and we don't know what they are. And maybe in 10 years, 20 years time, we will find out, oh my God, this stuff causes cancer, and nobody knew. So, but what we can do is we can do our own research, and we can eliminate materials that we know are dangerous to our health, like formaldehyde, for example, or volatile organic components like so-called VOCs. And they are, we find them in paint, for example, and there are low VOC paints and there are regular paints. And so we prefer to use the low VOC paints. What comes on top is an energy efficient home. And stop me when I'm talking too much. If somebody else wants to jump in, I'm free, happy to stop. But if you build an energy efficient home, one key functionality of the house is, beside the thermal envelope, the well insulated walls, is also the airtightness, because cracks and leaks are your #1 source of heat loss. Now, compared to Will's experience, we live in Ohio, so we have negative temperatures in winter sometimes, and we have blistering hot summers. So we have really extreme temperature delta between hot and cold. And our homes here have to deal with both extremes.
Okay.
And say again?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I thought I heard something. So
there was some freezing going on.
Oh, okay. Is it better now? Do you hear us now?
Yeah. Seems
Okay.
good.
Yes.
Yeah. So so we try very hard to make our houses as airtight as possible. We even import windows from Europe, triple glazed airtight windows with 4 layers of gaskets, which help to minimize the heat loss. Now that comes at a price because a conventional home, anything you find in your neighborhood, is like a sieve. It's leaking, and it's no joke. Then if you do a so-called blower door test, an air tightness test, you will find homes that allow 15 air changes per hour. That's not an unusual value. That means in winter or in summer, your conditioned air, in winter, your hot air exchanges with the cold outside air 15 times per hour. Can you imagine? This is just crazy.
And if I can step in here and say, why is that bad? You can say, well, it's good that a house breathes and gets
That's
air
what contractors
in and air
always
out.
tell their clients.
But for us, it's important to realize that when you live in a climate where you either have to heat or cool your home, you're doing that, unfortunately, still normally with fossil fuels. And we want to minimize that. And this is why we start with the structure of the home being as airtight as possible, so that the heating that you do have to achieve, you maintain that, or the cooling that you do need is relative, but in order to have a climate within your house that it's comfortable. You don't want to need to repeat that endlessly because you're losing air out into the environment. And so we focus on the air sealing quality and then the thermal envelope, so that it is as easy as possible, as resource minimal as possible, to keep that house as comfortable as you can. Back to Alexander.
Which brings me to the concept of artificial ventilation. So if you build a house like we do, you're talking about an organism. It's not a normal house anymore. It's a whole system. And one of the key features is you need to supply fresh air ventilation, mechanical ventilation. We do that with heat exchanging fans, Passive House certified fans that work in pairs. So one fan blows out the waste air. Let's assume winter, okay? It's cold outside, it's warm inside. So the fan pushes the waste air outside, and at the same time, on the other side is a connecting pair, a corresponding pair. And after 70 seconds, they change direction. Now, so the air gets pushed through a heat exchanger. It's like a little ceramic honeycomb body inside that hole, and it heats up by the waste air. And then after 70 seconds, when the direction changes, now this hot fan sucks in the fresh air from the outside. And this is amazing because they're like 85-90% efficient. You need just very, very minimal energy to keep
and very
the house
low tech.
warm.
It's very low tech. You don't have tubes running everywhere.
No
it
ducts
is
in
actually
the house.
right up there in the corner.
You see, maybe you can see it
maybe
back
you can see
there.
that.
You see
That's
it right on the top.
And so we tried to aim for as low tech as possible, using, like I said, a thermal envelope, air sealing, orientation of the home, looking at where the sun is. How can we benefit from the sun's rays in the winter, allowing a little bit more? How can we shade on the outside of the house to prevent the sun beating down on the glass? All of these things work together to create a resilient environment.
So, and to just close wrap it up. So that ventilation system helps to also get rid of anything in the air that might still be toxic. Because we don't know. We say no formaldehyde. We use those healthier paints. But the industry doesn't always tell us what's in there. Mattresses, furniture, packaging for your food. Who knows what's in there, you know?
Somebody decides to put new carpeting in. We try to avoid carpeting, but a lot of times people do that. And then you're living, especially if it's a renovation job, that's where it gets tricky. You're living in a space, you bring in something like carpeting with plastic padding, the cheapest padding, that if you're not paying attention, there's so much that you can and should pay attention to if you want to ensure that your environment is healthy, air quality is good, that it is as resilient as it can be for your family. Really, that's a lot of talk. I don't know.
Well, actually, thank you both. We are going to be coming back to you quite a bit, but I just wanted to bring in Vanessa right now because Vanessa is a pole dancing real estate agent by day?
I'm curious what I do at night. I actually was just completely riveted listening to you both, because architecture is such a great love of mine. And from the real estate and having been working on remodeling a lot of homes, I've always been interested in how we can build sustainably. And my earliest memories are that my father would always talk about, he's from France, and he would always talk about wanting to build into mountains, that was his ideal to capture that thermal heating by building into a mountain. Of course, I would be thinking about all the animals that you'd be harming in doing that. But I love the idea of minimizing how many resources that pollute the atmosphere and cost us in so many different ways. And I just loved that concept. And I wanted to address a few things you all said that I took notes on that I thought were so important, which is the FDA is not looking out for us. We do have to do our own research. I don't trust what the FDA allows, especially because they allow so much. And you look at Europe and Switzerland in terms of their ingredients, vastly different. So we do have to do our own research and do it extensively and look at other countries and how they're doing things as well. And the vagrancy idea that Dorit brought up, I just thought that was so great, because people who want to live authentically perhaps, or live on the land and live in nature and not buy into all these models that we have of how you have to box yourself in, that we're going to focus on them as doing a criminal act, whereas all the people who are violating code and permits and doing gross negligence of the land and or using toxic chemicals, we're not talking about arresting them. We don't go around arresting them, or people who are vastly wasting our resources and water and polluting our air. So there definitely is our laws definitely favor property owners and those, of course, with more financial wherewithal. But one of my goals right now with my Alora Vegan Organic Wellness Center, my love of real estate, combining them, I'm working on a book, which Dorit is going to be writing some chapters with me on leading. Dorit's like, wait, did I agree to that? To how to have a vegan, eco, sustainable, non-toxic life, the guide to it from start to finish of our homes, what we put in them, how we build them. Maybe I'll ask Michelle and Alexander also for some pages, and Will. If you could all be contributors, I'd be absolutely thrilled. So of really being mindful. Carpeting to me is just, I don't get why you would do that. Why not just get little bacteria and virus molds that you can, put in the middle of your house and attract all kinds of creatures and just have that growing. That's what a carpet is. Every time I started work at places with carpets, I'd get terrible throat infections. I just find them so toxic and so unhealthy, trapping all these bacteria underneath. But is there a way to look at every single aspect of our lives, from what we wear, organic cotton? I only buy organic cotton, hemp, and bamboo if it's sustainably processed. Every ingredient we put on our skin, in our bodies, what we wear, what the formaldehydes that you're referring to, and also all the flame retardants that are in our furniture, the sheets, the towels, the mattresses, building materials. I make sure never to buy any furniture that has particle board in it for the off-gassing. Moldings a lot of times have some off-gassing, so I pay attention to that as well. And the different materials, the low and no VOC. I think there's just so many aspects, and it can be so overwhelming for people. So that's what I'm hoping my guide will be, a way to do the research for you, because the FDA is not going to. We'll do the research for you, be able to inform you, so it's not so huge and overwhelming. You don't have to take up so much time out of your life in doing it, and we can help you with the building materials that'll work, and how to also maximize the harmony that you have with the planet rather than violating it, having it be a harmonious relationship where we're not emitting all these toxins into the air and polluting our air, water, and soil, that we can live in a way we live beautifully and joyfully without harming others, where we can have that joy and peace for everybody. And so having a system where we are able to be mindful when we create our spaces, whatever our spaces are, that we are fully mindful of every single aspect of it. And I'm so grateful to Doree. We were chatting on Sunday, and I wasn't even thinking that glasses had lead in them. I know that crystal does, but I didn't realize a lot of glasses do. And then what's in our silverware? So I vowed to my partner that we're only going to use bamboo chopsticks from now on, and I'm going to look into the getting non-lead glassware. So I just think it's so important that we are our own advocates and that we keep pushing the demand for sustainable materials, because a lot of times it's hard as individuals to have everything sustainable, but we push that demand so that we are pushing industry to create these better alternatives.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Next? Or
Yes, please go.
I want to really thank everybody. Thank you, Vanessa, and it's wonderful to hear from the architects. Also, this really important bringing some European sensibility of solid architecture. I'm also married to a Swiss, and I spend a lot of time in Europe, and I'm actually a Swiss citizen myself. But I just want to underline a few things that you guys have been saying, and offer a few other ideas. My main point is individual resiliency. Still, I think it's great to have, but I think it has to come from within ourselves. Fundamentally, to be not demanding to consume a lot of stuff and be always comfortable. But basically, I really recommend a video you can see online called Stink. That basic guide thing, it really underlines a lot of what Vanessa was saying, but there's actually, I don't think people realize that there's no protection at all in the United States from anything, if it's, that is something that you can smell. They can just put down fragrance, for example, in clothing, in furniture, whatever it is, they can put the word fragrance as a ingredient. And like laundry, for example, detergents, that can be a placeholder for any number, 100 chemicals, 1,000 chemicals. It can be any number of chemicals, and they can be anything. They can be arsenic. They can be completely toxic. There is literally zero oversight. Compared to Europe, the United States is absolutely, totally Wild West. So in the United States, we have no protection at all. I mean, it's something like, I think there's maybe 7 chemicals that have to be disclosed, but there's literally tens of thousands that do not have to be disclosed, whereas in Europe has thousands that have to be disclosed. So really understand this very clearly. If you're living in the United States, there's no protection, and these toxins do build up inside our homes. We just had a guy over here like a half an hour ago to fix the internet connection, and Madeline had to open up. She was immediately like opening up all the windows because his clothes stunk so much. We go hiking in nature, and we walking along a trail, and people walk by us, and we like can't breathe for a little while because the laundry detergent smell is so strong. I mean, these are aggressive, toxic smells. So just be aware of the idea that fragrance can be anything, and it's very toxic. Flame retardants, all kinds of things are added, and there's no protection at all. Also, paints. Again, you guys probably all know about that. I also want to emphasize the idea of gardens. I think really incorporating gardens in our homes, with our homes. We've been working really hard on that. Now we've got, I think, about 65 fruit trees we've planted here in the last few years, and recycling everything, right? All the black and gray water. I mean, our sewage and gray water as much as possible, depending on local laws and things. It's amazing how local laws won't allow composting toilets. They will allow you to just send it, to some plant which is not good for the environment, but to try to, as much as possible, recycle. We recycle everything. We recycle all of our own waste, all of our compost, all of our black and gray, and also to bring in food ourselves. We don't have to go to the store or somewhere. We're just growing our own food. And I think when we create our home as a garden as much as possible, and maybe connect a greenhouse to it for the winter, if we live in a northern climate, then we just create a system that is full of love and joy and healing, because we're growing our own food. We love the plants love us back. And it creates an ecosystem of not only lots of animals, we have so many birds and insects and bees that come here, and it makes it more warm in the winter and cooler in the summer. We have, more and more trees with more shade in the summer. It's warmer. We even have avocados growing up here in Northern California, which normally you never can have. So the whole climate is modulated by bringing in more trees and more living beings to be with us. Also, cookware is a big thing. I'm glad you mentioned the lead, but we've done a lot of research in this. We only cook with either Salad Master or Healthcraft. These are companies that make cookware that's non-toxic. People don't realize that anything you buy is full of recycled metal, and that metal could have been a car, a battleship, a nuclear submarine carrier. You don't know what it is, and it's in your cooking. And every time you heat up the pan, whatever you, and glass is terrible, enamel is terrible. They all have heavy metals. Anything made out of metal, anything, of course, with any kind of non-stick surface, forget it. So you pay a lot of money for these pans. They're like $700 or $800 for a pan, maybe, or $400 or something, but it'll last forever. So you just buy a couple of good pans that don't, because every time, otherwise you're getting heavy metal poisoning every time you cook anything. And so there's a lot to learn. I know it's overwhelming. I'm really glad to hear, Vanessa, that you're making this book. There's many chapters to go into with because we lived on the road all these years. We go into people's houses all the time. We're invited in, we spend the night, whatever, we're traveling. And we look into what people are using, their laundry, their personal care products, their house cleaning products. I mean, things are really toxic everywhere, toxins everywhere, putting on our face, on our skin, so forth. So to just don't trust the corporation, the government. I can't underline that enough. We have to do our own research. It's very hard to find really non-toxic things. And the best thing is don't buy things. I mean, just do the minimum, clean with vinegar and water, and keep it really simple, I think. And then the energy thing is important. We're so blessed. We have solar energy, so everything goes back into the. We feed the grid year round, basically. But I do want to mention two other things. One is heating. In Europe, and where I grew up as a kid, the heating in the winter was hot water, and that is incredibly much better. I mean, hot water where the heat just radiates. Where the kind of heater most people have is blowing hot air, and that's why we have the flu season, I think. I mean, the research I've done is that blowing hot air into spaces, it just stresses you out. I can't stay in these places. I get a sore throat right away. So I think I'm just not used to it. But I think being aware of the heating, and then also, and then of course minimizing air conditioning use is important. And the air-to-air heat exchangers, super insulating houses. You can super insulate a house, as you know, and put in air-to-air heat exchangers, and you don't even need to heat the house. Hardly. I mean, even in Montana, they have people that hardly heat the house. Just their own body temperature will keep the house warm. So we can build so much more efficiently. The other thing is water. We have something that comes onto when the water comes into our house and into our garden. We have the water is structured. It goes through something that structures the water, because water in pipes loses its waterness in a lot of ways. It becomes all the molecules line up electrically, and it becomes like dead water. And it doesn't work very well for our health. It doesn't work very well for our plants. So what we've discovered is by putting structuring units in the garden. I mean, our things are just, we did it this year, and things are just growing like mad. We're getting huge amounts of fruits, much more than we ever got before, because the water is structured. When water flows naturally in streams, it's naturally structured. The molecules are free flowing and are easily accessible by biological systems like plants and human beings. So we also have it in our house too. And so besides having good water purification, because you don't want fluoride, you don't want chlorine, you don't want all that toxic stuff, but to structure the water also so that it's easily accessible. I don't need to drink as much. I just noticed it's much more a much better, a more healthy feeling. And so these are things you can fortunately add on. And then the other thing is to be aware of electromagnetic fields. If you have a smart meter on your house, you'll get rid of it. These electromagnetic fields are very harmful. And I think this is well understood. And the more we can be conscious of these different types of pollution, water, air, and toxic chemicals and electromagnetic radiation, don't use Wi-Fi. I'm just hooked into Ethernet connection right now, for example. We can really, I think, improve the way that we're living by being aware of these things. So I'm going to stop there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Will.
I would like to jump in.
Yeah. 1 second, please. I just want to what Alexander, yes, just 1 second to follow up with something Will said.
Yeah, I know that was a lot of.
For those of you who do not understand what structured water is, in phase 1 of our Creating Resilience series, we did an entire show that was just dedicated to structured water. That was with Leslie Barnett. So you can still find it on our Creating Resiliency group page or collaborative page. There's an entire show just on structured water there, because this is critical for each and all of us to know. Alexander, hold for a second, because I'd like to bring in another concept here at this point, and that is we're all speaking about homes and outdoors, and we're right now, we're living in the United States. And one of the things that I am very regretful about is that I was not able to find a Native American to bring on, because we cannot ignore the Native Americans and their adobe homes according to the weather, how they build totally in harmony with nature. Vanessa was talking about living in harmony. To build homes, I think in the United States, you've got to build homes according to the land and the ancient cultures here. They knew how to live with nature and in nature and be part of nature, because we are all part of nature. And we're going to be having a roundtable discussions where phase 3 of the Creating Resiliency series is going to be roundtable discussions. I'm inviting everyone else here to come back for that. But I would very much like, if anyone listening in right now or part of the panel knows anyone who's Native American who we could bring into the conversation, I would love to have that, because this is something that I feel very strongly about. Just like how I feel we ought to eat according to the seasons, I think our homes also need to reflect the seasons. So, Alexander, you're back. Please come on board and please add what it is you wanted to say.
Yeah, Will said some really interesting things that we have been thinking about too. Are we on camera? I see Will.
It's okay.
Okay,
that's better.
Yeah. So he talked about, Will, you talked about air or water-based heating systems. There's a catch. I need to point that out. So if you build an energy-efficient house like we do, you need so little heat that a conventional water-based heating system will always run under capacity and be very, very inefficient that way. We use only heat pump technology in our homes for heating and cooling, and they are really amazing. I love the heat pumps. They are 300% efficient. For 1 kilowatt you put in there, you get 3 kilowatt out. And especially for heating purposes, given the fact that you don't need a lot of heat, you get a house that is extremely cost efficient in terms of your electricity use. We only use electricity in the homes. We don't use gas. Unless a client insists, and of course, if it's his house, it's his money. If he wants gas, he can have gas. But we try to avoid it at any cost. Anything fossil fuel sources, we try to avoid. And also, if you bring a house to a net zero level, you need to explain what that means. We need electricity for heating, for cooling, for light, for cooking, for whatever, TV, music, whatever you need electricity for. But you can generate as much electricity as you need to run the house over the course of the year. And we all know that those are photovoltaic elements that you put on your roof. And the greenest way to do that, it's not possible in every state, but in California, for example, it's very common. You just feed the excess electricity into the grid. Basically, you use the grid as your storage battery,
Right.
and you buy it back when you need it. You have 2 meters. It's called net metering. So you always keep the balance, how much electricity you sell to the grid and how much you buy back. And that's a very good way to make a house basically very efficient. Many people talk about off the grid. We don't believe that off the grid is really the answer, because in order to do that, you need to put big batteries into your house, because at night you still need electricity and your solar panels don't do anything at night. So in order to avoid those big batteries in your house, which are toxic, I think buying and selling to the grid is the perfect answer. Another thing, I saw some comment here about light sources. We only put LED lighting in our homes, which produce very little heat and are very efficient, of course. Another thing I wanted to jump on is the whole concept of net zero can also mean that the house is built so efficiently that you actually don't need AC. We built a home in Sonoma County in California, and when we visited the client, it was in the heat of July.
Mhm.
We came into the house and it was nice and cool inside. And I asked him, "So AC is running really well, huh?" And he said, "We're not using
It's
it."
not on.
And the reason is we had the super insulated walls, the triple glazed windows, and we had exterior blinds. And that's a very, very important thing to do. Because the UV portion of the sunlight that hits the glass transmits into the building, heats up the building. You know that you park your car on the parking lot in the sun in winter, and it's super hot in the car. And so this is additional heat that you can prevent from entering the house by using exterior blinds that are UV reflective. They're still transparent. You can look through from inside. From outside, it gives you some privacy because you can't really look in, but it keeps the heat out. And that makes such a huge difference. It was, what was it, like 68 inside, it was 90 outside, and the AC wasn't running. It's super awesome. This is the way to do it. You see that very often people put blinds or whatever on the inside. It's too late. By that time, the sun is already heating up, it's in, and all it does is it keeps the glare out, but not the heat. So those little things, just changing your habits, changing certain configurations can take you so far. And also I would just drop another word about radiation. High frequency radiation is really an issue. When we worked with this one German manufacturer, they had this very, very impressive R&D department, and they developed a foil, almost like a tin foil. Don't laugh, it's not a hat. It's just a tin foil on the inside of the sheathing of the walls, between the drywall and the structural sheathing. And that foil was grounded, and it kept the signals from electric lines, power lines, radio towers, cell phone, and no reception in the house, or very bad reception. But it kept all those high frequency waves out. And because they did an experiment, they put a raw egg between 2 cell phones. Took a couple of days, but after 3 days, if I remember correctly, the egg was cooked. It's that extreme, the radiation. We have these phones on our heads. We have them beside us on the night table. I totally agree to Will's suggestion to avoid Wi-Fi. You can't always avoid it, but in our homes, for example, we always have a dead switch. At night, you can just turn the Wi-Fi off. You have still your TV on Ethernet, and just turn it off so that it doesn't, grill you while you're sleeping. It's really important to keep those things in mind. Just something I wanted to throw in.
And in general, a recurring topic that has come from Vanessa and Will, and I took a few notes before we came on, it's the self-advocacy. Nothing is better than doing your own research, and doing your research from very trusted sources. And also, it's funny, the cookware, the cleaning products, not only the furnishings and things like that, but there are there's a hit list of things that you need to pay attention to. And so Vanessa's idea of a book, I'm sure there are some types of books out there that address this, but things change very quickly. The industry changes with demand. And if we demand better products, materials, then we will get them. That is something that I did notice. when I returned to the States after having been in Europe for 13 years, that the industry had changed quite a lot. We were able to find a lot of healthier products and materials than when I left in 1993. So really, if we push more, we will get it, but we need to have concerted effort in demanding healthy items.
Thank you for that, Michelle. I'd like to go to Vanessa first, just because I like to bring the audience in. The viewers have some comments. Vanessa.
Yes, thank you for that, Dory. We have. I'm sorry if I'm not sure if it's Rochelle Carson, your friend you were mentioning yesterday, whom I wish we could have or we'll have next time. She says, "Hi, Dory. I'm here watching. Very interesting. I wish I had met Alexandra and Michelle when I was building my home years ago, but we did a great job with our platinum home, and she does have air conditioning, by the way." And Johnny Martinez is saying that he lowers most of his lighting and uses the lighting to help assist in heating and non-direct. And that I also wrote down the name of the film Stink that Will had recommended about the fragrances and the cookware. And some more comments about Johnny is saying he can't stand laundry detergent or fabric softeners. And let's see what else that we have here. Oh, a point he's bringing up about where you put your windows too. If you're in a very hot climate, you probably don't want to have too many southern facing windows because that's going to make it really, really hot. And so I think where we, unless we have those outside blinds, I suppose that Alexandra was talking about. And then,
or overhangs.
Or overhangs, and then maybe not so much of an issue. He says, I'm trying to buy a home in Arizona. I have 2 nice vehicles, gets better mileage, more power. Great, yeah. Dorit, if I may, I just wanted to add a couple of things after the viewer comments. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
please.
So I remember when I used to read, well, I still do, read a lot of period pieces, and in the Renaissance where they would have these massively huge tapestries on walls, and that was their insulation. And I always loved that idea, of course, not having tapestries made with any animal products, no wool, no silk, but I just love that idea of having massive tapestries as part of your insulation. And I love the idea of using native wisdoms that have been lost in a lot of ways, whether it be native peoples of whatever country and the ways that they use to build and to heat, that we could stand to benefit from if we employed some of those techniques. Other thing I was going to say is please don't buy plastic whenever possible in any way whatsoever. It's toxic. It's made often with animal-based stearic acid. It's destroying the environment, water, earth, air. Things are worse now with COVID with all the disposable plastic things. I bring all my bags to the farmer's market and just have them put the stuff directly into my bags. I got rid of my bathroom and kitchen trash cans because I wasn't putting anything in them. I compost everything or recycle. Unfortunately, when I get that, junk mail and flyers and things, that's most of it. Solar, I'm curious if Alexandra and Michelle are saying that power walls are a bad idea for the nighttime because we're considering doing that when we get our solar panels. And if you also know anything about the toxicity of LEDs, that I've heard they can, that's what I use, but I've heard that they contain a lot of lead and arsenic and can lead to cancers and neurological things. Last thing, in terms of products, I clean everything in the house with baking soda, vinegar, lemon. I brush my teeth with baking soda. I take it traveling with me and use it as deodorant and my toothpaste. I use arrowroot powder as powder. I use often raw cacao powder on my eyebrows. And I put beet powder in with the arrowroot powder for blush. You can add some turmeric and or cinnamon and have it as bronzer. So you can make a lot of your stuff for pennies and no toxins, no fillers, no packaging. And the other thing is I make my own coconut soap in a crock pot. I use coconut oil and I make my own soap that I use for my dishes, my hand washing, body washing, all of that. So I make a lot of my own products. So I'm minimizing toxicity. And 2 more comments from our viewers. Rochelle is asking if you can recommend a company for outside blinds and overhangs.
We can, yeah.
In Los Angeles.
Just a second, Alexandra.
And then Rochelle says, I have 2 Tesla Powerwalls and they are okay side, and I'm very happy. Okay, that was it for viewer comments so far.
Yeah, well, 2 things. So we have 2 products that we use. One is a company called Renson, Renson. They do exterior Venetian blinds, and then Phantom Screens is a good company.
Stateside.
They are stateside. They're all over the US, and they have certain fabric that is UV reflective, and they come in huge sizes, which is also a great benefit if you have the possibility to have the guide rails on either side. They can go up to 14 feet or something crazy. One blind, an exterior blind. They're motorized, so you flick a switch and they go up and down. That's really cool. And Rochelle, I'm not against the Powerwall. I just wanted to make people aware that batteries have a lot of toxic chemicals in them. I would probably use one in my own house, but that's my own personal decision because I like the general concept. But here we're talking about toxins in the house, so that's something to really carefully consider.
The thing about that is it's a matter of trust and dependency on a utility company. There are advantages and disadvantages. The advantage to hooking up to the grid is it's there. You don't need to store. However, if something should happen to that grid, if you want to be truly more resilient, then you're going to have your own battery. You're going to have it charged and it's going to be there for you when you need it. Or you're going to have a generator and a tank that's going to fuel that generator. It's all a question of your priorities and where you live and what the availability is in terms of the utility company.
And so, I have some experience with that too. I lived in an RV, a rolling home for, like I said, 17 years. And the whole time we get solar panels and we learned to basically live with batteries, and I would add batteries, and with time it got to be pretty good. But you really get to be very grateful for your energy, because we would need energy for, for various things, mainly for the computer and running the blender and this and that. And then when we got this house, we put solar panels on the roof, and we got somehow very fortunate, and we got to be part of a pilot project, I guess, in some way, and we got one of these Powerwall. It was kind of before the Powerwall came out. It was like a one leading up to that. It's pretty big. It's about 600-pound big battery they put on in our garage on the wall, and it's really, I have to say, I think it's great because I didn't have to really pay much for it, because it's, like I say, it was a state-funded program. I think we're the only ones north of San Francisco to get one. Mm-hmm. And so the big advantage is where we live, and it's just good to be aware of this. We're just using the grid as a battery all the time, and we're using much less than we're putting in, because we don't have AC and we just don't run much. So we're just feeding into it. But like when we had a fire here in 2015. The grid was down for 8 days, and we didn't even know the grid was down. Everybody had to leave. We stayed here. The battery just ran our house during the day. We would charge up our batteries at night. It worked perfectly. And so it worked the whole time. And then the other thing is now PG&E, we're in California. They're doing all these blackouts and brownouts and fire season. So everybody has to have a generator. So I think, I know what you mean about the toxic chemicals, but man, I'm telling you, we've been really glad we have this battery.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really there's always a situation where you have to choose black, white, or which gradation in between, and where you are, what your priorities are, what your personal beliefs are, and what your opportunities are. They all play, no matter what topic you're going to attend to. It always comes down to that.
Yeah. And then the other thing. Go ahead. Yes.
Go finish up.
Well,
finish up. We only have. I want to make it clear to everyone. We only have 6 minutes left, so I need everyone to be brief. We only have 6 minutes left, so each person has a chance. Go ahead, please, Will.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to follow up on some wonderful points by Vanessa. all these different ways of making your own makeup, making your own cleansing products, making your own toothpaste. I just think that's so wonderful. And Madeline and I do the same thing. We use baking soda, salt, and peppermint oil is really fantastic. Soap nuts are another great thing. You know, these are from this tree in India. The nuts actually get frosty, and she does laundry with these soap nuts. There's no fragrance, of course, but I mean, there's so many things. Like where we live now, the Native American people lived here, and they ate, you know, the manzanita nuts and the acorns, and they lived very simply for thousands of years and didn't pollute anything. And like you say, there's so much we can learn. We also have a house in Ecuador we built with adobe, and it's a very natural. Of course, it's easy there. The temperature is always 70 degrees year round. But it's at 5,000 feet. But just to live in harmony with as best you can. Like I guess I'll just follow up on that with use the Native American or indigenous wisdom, and then use the technology like our wonderful architects are saying, to find ways to keep our living spaces alive and healthy, because that's the main thing. I think that it comes from inside us, and then it goes out into the house around us.
Okay, so thank you very much, Will. I would like Michelle to just sum up, please, and then after that we'll go to Alexander for 1 minute, and then we'll go back to Vanessa and then myself at the end.
Oh, in summary,
Michelle.
Yeah, to the resiliency of your home. Really, we've never had such an opportunity through the internet to do research. Really, if you're building, if you're renovating, if you're just concerned about your own personal health, that how it's been affected perhaps by what is in your home, really dig in, research it, find opportunities like this to hear about others' experiences. Find somebody else who cares deeply about a topic. You don't have to know everything about every topic, but know where to look. And that's basically what we do here. You know, for our clients, I vet every product and material that we specify, and we offer that as a service then to our clients so that they don't have to do that individual research. And we all need to be as effective with our time and energy as we can be.
All right, let me conclude. One thing I learned here in the US is there's much more movement from the bottom up than compared to Europe, where all the Green Party example, for example, in Germany, it came from the government. The Green Party came to power, and then they suggested recycling. I mean, recycling wasn't a thing 30 years ago. Now it's crazy. Everything gets recycled in Germany. So the situation is, so the government puts it on you, and then people obey. Here in the States, it's a little bit the other way. The government really doesn't care so much, but the people, they have a resilience. They say, I need to do something because my government is failing me here. So, and this is really encouraging, and that's what keeps us in business. People come to us because of what we do, and it's that's really encouraging.
Thank you. Thank you very much for what you do. We will definitely invite you back for the round table, because this is a topic which we actually need no time limits on to discuss. There's so much that I wanted to say and I wanted to bring up, but the hour goes by really fast. So we will continue this conversation.
So many directions you can go. That's right, Dorit.
Yes. So Vanessa, you're next. To sum up for 1 minute, please.
Okay. Oh, bye. So I just wanted to say how great it would be if both people and the government advocated for progressive change. What would that be like? I mean, what a concept. I wanted to say, just as I'm a psychotherapist, and I just wanted to talk really quickly about that. The non-toxicity does start with our ways of being. The body stores all emotions and everything that's happened, and our mind can obsess over things and can think of our anxious thoughts as actual things rather than just events that pass. And so I just want to say, I think the foundation is to be looking inside and to meditate and bring that peace so that we're not projecting toxicity out there into the world. And it also helps us be less overwhelmed when we inform our literal home space of not being toxic in any way. And just one last thing, when I was a personal trainer years ago, and I'd have these clients obsessively wanting to do these diets and regimens and all this, and I said, if you're so miserable, nothing is going to work. You're going to be so unhealthy. It has to be done joyfully and with calm peace of mind. So thank you for that.
Great.
Will, you're wrapping up
just
1 minute, please.
Okay, very briefly. I feel very fortunate that in my early years, in my 20s, I spent a lot of time as a meditator and lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery in Korea. And so I was kind of immersed in another culture that had really a different ethic in many ways, an ethic of harmony with nature, inner silence, and really, I guess, an ethic of discipline and just mindfulness rather than wanting something. And there's an old saying in the Zen tradition, in the winter, I shiver. In the summer, I sweat. And that's the basic idea, is like, just live with it. I mean, don't resist and don't fight and don't try to change the world all the time. Enjoy sweating, enjoy shivering, right? I mean, there's, I lived in this monastery in the mountains of Korea where we get one robe for like 5 years and you just keep mending it. You mend it and repair it and you don't throw anything away. You finally end up using it as a rag, but you don't throw anything away. You respect everything. And that's the basic idea. Everything we ate, we grew there, or the local people grew. You take whatever you take at the meals, which are just wooden bowls and wooden utensils, and you eat it. You can't say, oh, I took too much and throw it away. You've got to eat it. You can't waste anything. You don't waste one leaf of lettuce. There's no waste. You don't take more water than you need. You don't take more tea. You don't take more food. You don't take more anything. You just use the minimum. You don't own anything. You just have a bowl and a robe, and that's it. And the whole idea is that we don't need all this stuff, and we don't need these big houses to store all these things, and then this comfort all the time. Just to come back home to the beauty and joy of experiencing life without all these bumpers and all this fear-based protection of what I need to protect me and my fragile little body. I mean, to really realize we're amazingly resilient as physical beings, and the more we get in touch with all these things, I think the happier we are. Actually, that's the irony. We're much happier, I think. So that's it. I went too long again.
Thank you. So we are out of time. So I won't go into what I was about to say, but I just want to remind everyone that this series continues. Next week we're talking about language and the power of language and how we can use language to change our mental concept or physical being and everything in our environment. With that, this is Dorit. I want to thank you all for tuning in. When I created the series, the whole idea, I did it because we were asked to go into lockdown and to go inside our homes. And I was absolutely shocked that we were not told, or at the same time, but be careful when you go into your homes. That's actually more toxic than what we're telling you to sequester yourself from. And so I wanted to create a series where we talk about all these different things, and towards the end, talk about the toxicity in the home. We will continue this conversation. Please stay tuned. Please join our Creating Resiliency collaborative group if you'd like to learn more. And Rochelle, if you're still listening, we will have you on next time, and we'll put you in touch with Alexandra and Michelle as well. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, both Alexander and Michelle. And to our audience, a big thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time, this is Dorit.